He had seen 1,000 dawns rise over broken fields. And with every sunrise, he buried a part of himself beneath the earth. He had marched through endless winters, slept beneath skies that knew no mercy, and carried the weight of names long forgotten. For years, the sound of clashing steel was the only song he knew. His armor was his shelter, his silence his companion, and his sword his only truth. But tonight, the wind feels different. It doesn't scream, it breathes. It carries the scent of rain, the warmth of soil, the whisper of a world that once knew peace. The road beneath his horse is soft with fallen leaves, and the air hums with the promise of something sacred, something he thought he had lost forever. He no longer rides for kings or crowns. He rides for forgiveness, for rest, for the small, quiet moments that war had stolen from him. And as the first light of dawn brushes against his tired face, he realizes that this journey, this return, is not toward a castle, nor a home built of stone. It is a journey inward, toward the last battlefield, his own heart. The path ahead was quiet, almost sacred. Every sound, every breath of wind, carried a memory. He could hear the creak of his saddle, the soft rhythm of hooves pressing into earth, and somewhere far beyond, the echo of his past life fading into silence. For the first time in years, he felt no need to rush. The wars had taught him to move fast, to strike before thinking, to survive before feeling. But now, he wanted to feel again. He passed through the remains of an old road, stone pillars half buried in moss, a broken cart overtaken by vines. The world had moved on without him. And yet, somehow, it felt kinder now. The air was soft, filled with the scent of damp earth and pine. He could taste rain in the wind, a reminder that the sky, too, remembers. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the rustle of leaves above. It was strange how something so simple, the sound of leaves moving, could feel like forgiveness. He reached a hill before sunset. Below, he saw what once had been his land, a quiet valley surrounded by woods, a stream cutting through the center like a silver thread. He remembered this place, not as it was now, overgrown and wild, but as it had been, full of voices, of laughter, of warmth. There used to be a house near the stream. A home. A place where his mother would wait by the door, hands dusted with flour, smiling as he came riding down the road. He could almost see her still, a ghost made of memory and light. But time had its own wars, and even love, once bright, can fade quietly into the mist. He dismounted and walked slowly toward the stream. Each step pressed softly into the earth, as though he feared disturbing the silence. When he knelt beside the water, he saw his reflection, a stranger's face staring back. The eyes were tired, the beard gray, the lines around his mouth carved deep by years of command and loss. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like a man trying to remember who he used to be. He cupped his hands, drank from the cold stream, and felt the taste of life return, raw and clean. It was not victory. It was peace. And peace, he thought, was far heavier than any sword he had ever carried. He gathered a few branches and lit a small fire. The flame burned low, flickering softly in the wind. He watched the smoke rise into the night, curling, dancing, vanishing. And in that simple motion, he saw his life. So many years of fighting, so many reasons that no longer mattered, so many faces he would never see again. He whispered a prayer, not for victory, but for peace. For those who were gone, for those who still wandered, and maybe for himself. The fire crackled quietly. The stars began to appear, one by one, like old friends returning from far away. He lay back on the ground, watching them appear in silence. The sky was wide, endless, a great, breathing thing. He felt small beneath it, and yet whole. He did not know what awaited him beyond the hills. He did not know if home still existed. But tonight, for the first time in many years, he allowed himself to rest. The fire dimmed. The air grew cool. And as he drifted into sleep, he thought, perhaps peace is not something we find, but something we finally stop running from. He slept beside the stream, and for the first time in years, his dreams were quiet. No battle cries, no burning fields, only the gentle hum of crickets, and the slow rhythm of his own breath. When morning came, the mist lay low upon the ground, The grass was heavy with dew. He rose slowly, his joints stiff from years of armor, and looked around as sunlight broke across the valley. The world seemed new again. Every leaf caught light like glass. Every bird song felt like forgiveness. He knelt and washed his face in the stream. The cold water stung, and yet it felt like a blessing. As he mounted his horse once more, he felt the faint weight of his sword against his leg. He looked at it, the steel dull, the handle worn. Thought of how many times he had held it and how it had taken more than it had ever given. Tied it to his saddle, but for the first time, it did not feel like part of him. He felt like something he was ready to leave behind. The road climbed toward the hills. Ahead lay the ruins of the old castle, his home, once proud and filled with laughter. Now only stone and silence remained. Rode slowly. Each turn of the path brought a memory, a friend's laughter, a promise never kept, the look in the eyes of those he couldn't save. But beneath it all, a growing peace, like a wound that no longer hurts, but still remembers. The castle gates were open. Nature had taken back what man had built. Vines crawled over the stone, grass grew where swords once clashed. Walked through the courtyard, past the fountain that had long run dry. The air smelled of dust and forgotten years. Could almost hear voices, the clang of armor, the songs of soldiers, the shouts of celebration after victory. But now, only silence remained. Stepped into the great hall. The roof had partly fallen, and through it, a beam of sunlight fell upon the floor, lighting the place where once the throne had stood. He knelt there not as a knight, not as a warrior, but as a man who had lost and found everything in between. He whispered into the still air, "I am home." The words trembled, and yet they felt true. He sat there for a long while, feeling the warmth of the sun on his hands. How strange, he thought, that peace did not arrive with victory, but with surrender. He took off his armor piece by piece, the chest plate, the gauntlets, the boots, the sword belt. Each sound echoed like a bell. With every piece that fell away, he felt lighter. When he stood again, he was only himself, a man clothed in time and memory. Walked toward the window where once a queen had stood outside. The world stretched green and endless. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, he could almost feel her hand in his. He left the castle by the southern gate, walking down the slope that led to the village. Children ran between cottages. Women carried baskets of bread and herbs. The smell of smoke and fresh bread filled the air. People glanced up as he passed, not with fear or awe, but with curiosity. They did not know him. His name had been forgotten. He smiled gently. It was better that way. He found the blacksmith's shop, now run by a young man. Strong arms stood on his face. The knight set his sword upon the counter. The young smith looked at it with wonder. "It's old," he said. "Heavy. It's seen too much." The knight nodded, then let it rest. The smith hesitated. "You don't want it back?" "No," the knight replied softly, "I don't fight anymore." He stepped outside again, feeling the weight lift from his soul. He walked through the marketplace, past stalls of fruit and cloth and laughter, and as he listened to the simple music of life, the chatter, the wind, the heartbeat of the world, he realized he had found what no war had given him: stillness. Bought a small loaf of bread and sat by the fountain. Pigeons gathered near his feet. A little girl smiled at him. He smiled back, and in that small, quiet exchange he felt something heal inside him. That night, he stayed in a small inn at the edge of the village. The room was simple: a bed, a wooden chair, a window facing the forest. Lit a small fire and watched the flames dance. They reminded him of campfires long ago when men told stories to keep the dark away. He remembered laughter, remembered songs, remembered faces, and he whispered their names into the quiet, as though the walls might carry them to the stars. Rest now, my brothers, rest. He took from his pocket a small token, a ring, dull with it had belonged to her, the one who had waited, and perhaps still waited in some unseen place. Placed it by the firelight, and for a moment he saw her smile again. He lay down. The bed creaked softly beneath his weight. Outside, the wind sang through the trees. He closed his eyes, and for the first time, he didn't dream of war. He dreamed of light, of rivers, of hands that forgave. He woke before sunrise. The sky was pale, and mist drifted between the trees. He stepped outside the inn, feeling the earth cool beneath his feet. He walked to the edge of the forest, where the first light touched the leaves. He knelt, hands clasped, and simply listened. There was no prayer, no plea, only presence. For years he had spoken to gods of war. Now, he spoke to silence. And silence, at last, answered. He felt tears on his cheeks. Not of sorrow, but of release. Every wound, every loss, every burden he had carried seemed to fall away with the morning mist. He rose, looked toward the horizon, and smiled. He had lived long enough to understand that peace was not the absence of war. It was the acceptance of what was. He began to walk again, not as a knight, not as a warrior, just as a man. And the world, for once, walked with him. As the years passed, he stayed near the village. He helped where he could, spoke little, laughed often. Children came to hear his stories, not of battle, but of kindness, of courage that did not require swords. He planted trees by the river. He watched them grow. And when the seasons turned, he sat beneath their shade and listened to life. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, he walked down to the river's edge. The water reflected the sky, 1,000 stars waiting to be born. He felt the wind, the earth, the quiet pulse of the world around him. And in that moment, he knew he had returned home long ago. not to a castle, not to a throne, but to the stillness of his own heart. He closed his eyes. The world grew soft, and as the stars appeared one by one, it seemed they gathered close, welcoming him. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying his breath into the night. The night had found his rest, and in his rest, the world found peace.